Hello, everyone. Today we have on the show Jeffrey Uzoka. Uh, Jeffrey, how are you doing today?
Fantastic. I'm good. How are you?
Yeah, I'm doing great. It's great to finally connect, and I've been looking forward to this conversation because we've always wanted to have this call. Something has always come up, and we have to just reschedule. But today, I'm grateful it came. I'm just grateful we're eventually having it. I've been looking forward to this conversation, and I've spent a long time going through what you are building at MandatesVR, yourself and the team. And I must say, I'm impressed. Today, I want us to take it all the way to the back. Your background, your journey, places you've worked, maybe places you've even schooled, the ambitions you had growing up. Maybe you still have the same things now, or things have changed, and all of how all of that led to you co-founding Mandate VR. And of course, we'll get into the exciting product you're launching in the EdTech space, which is something I really think a lot of people need to know about. So thank you for taking the time for the call today. So we'll start with the background, where you grew up, your ambitions, the schools where you worked, what interested you, or what problem did you experience that made you say, okay, I want to build Mandates VR.
I think I had a very I wouldn't I'm not sure there's anything dramatic about my childhood. I grew up with as what you would call maybe on get inside. Only those in Lagos will probably understand. But right, we didn't really have a lot of experiences in terms of uh, mixing with a lot of people. Where probably as my sibling and I were probably in the house most of the time. But then we spent holidays with family. So, but schooling was fun. It was interesting. I mean, I attempted to go to a boarding school in junior high, but I get, or I got dealt a serious blow. I think I got one of these cars anyway from school. And afterwards, my mom just said, "No, you're not going to die in school. Leave boarding house and come back home." But apart from that, I got into entrepreneurship quite early. Not in the cliche way everybody sees it. I mean, I didn't even know it was business at the time. But I used to be involved in doing one or two things to get money from high school. I would lend people money and get it back in with interest. It was almost maybe the standard 130% interest rather. Give 100 naira, get back 130, give 1K, get back 1003, like that. I think I only stopped after someone borrowed money from me and then changed school after. And I was like, man, I didn't mitigate for that risk. And so that was it in high school. But in uni, I found my way back into entrepreneurship, but not out of passion in quotes. Things got a little tough while I was in school. So a friend of mine who was my roommate then, Victor, told me, "You're an adult now." I think I was 19 at the time or 18. No, 19. He said, "You're an adult now. You don't need your parents. They've done the best for you and brought you to school. You can take care of the rest." So I started reading a lot of business books. He introduced me to business books. I started reading. The first I read was Retire Young, Retire Rich by Robert Kiyosaki. Took me 5 months to finish that. But after then, I just started reading so many. From Rich Dad Poor Dad to, and then I got into so many other books anyway. So naturally, if you consume a lot of information like that, you want to practice. So in school, I attempted to do a cinema, and then I attempted to do. I was running a magazine at the point, then a newspaper, and then finally in partnership with my two friends at the time, we're running a laundry. That did really well before we left school. So naturally, immediately after school, I thought I would not work for anybody because, man, I was running a laundry. We had 5 employees. What could I possibly learn again from another business. But again, life taught me serious lessons. My co-founder and I then were running a clothing line. We got into this real financial crisis that eventually caused a split, and then we had to leave the business with serious debt. Took me personally maybe 2 years plus to pay back the debt that we had shared between us, my own portion. So at that point, I needed to get a job. I did. So I got a job with the fintech page finance, but I didn't really like the job. I didn't like what I was selling. Then I found my way in real estate, into real estate. Now at this point, I mean, I had long decided that I didn't want to do engineering, even though I worked as an engineer for a while in a telecoms company. But I just decided maybe engineering was not for me. Very early on in 300, 200 level, I probably would have dropped out of school if I was paid, if the school fees was paid to my account. Then I would just carry the money and go and start business. But thank God that did not happen. The long and short is I got into real estate and it was really, really, really good. Maybe that was what really gave me a sense of, oh, I can achieve anything, because as a rookie, I did really well. Within the first year, I would say things had really transformed for me from being in debt for more than 2 years to being really comfortable and being able to do a lot of things for myself and maybe people around me. I just thought, okay, well, I can achieve anything, so I can jolly well go back to entrepreneurship now full time. So then I resigned and started consultancy with a colleague of mine who is now my co-founder also. So that's the answer, maybe one of your questions.
Yeah.
Daniel Bauer. Also, I mean, naturally, this is Mandate is our second startup together, but naturally, that was a trajectory before getting to um, being a founder.
Okay, that's actually very nice. I mean, looking back, starting from lending people money and the person changes to hopefully the person sees this video and is tempted to return your money. I think you really had your own fair share of the ups and downs that comes with entrepreneurship. And that's actually great. And I think right now you are skilled and or should I say you're experienced enough to face whatever is coming. Moving on to the next question. For someone hearing about Mandates VR for the very first time, how do you explain what you do in the simplest way possible?
What MandatesVR does is to, for like, for as simple as possible, we're creating the VR infrastructure for Africa. Right now, if someone wanted to create a virtual experience of this space or to create an AR object, you would need to outsource that service to a foreign platform. So we decided, okay, let us build what Africans can use, what a Nigerian would be able to pay in Naira for, right? That's what we're
Yeah.
doing. But then we do have flagship products in real estate and education.
And that's actually very fantastic. Where did the idea of Mandates VR come from? Was there any single moment in real estate or maybe any moment in your entrepreneurial career that made you have the idea?
Well, Mandate VR actually did start from the idea of trying to make viewing properties easier, especially because back in maybe 2019, first had, even if we didn't start until just recently, I first had the idea in 2019. I was talking to my co-founder about it then. We are trying to get very busy prospects or potential buyers to view a property, but it might take you 3 months to 4 months to find time within your calendars to meet.
Yeah.
And if you've ever looked for a house in Lagos, you know, I mean, look for a house for rent in Lagos, you know that
Yeah.
it is a chore. right?
Yeah.
Sometimes you would have visited 10 properties and you absolutely would not even look at maybe one of them. And I just thought a virtual tour can solve all of this instead of burning fuel or spending time going from place to place. You might as well just look at the virtual tour and decide whether or not you even want to go to the property, right? So that was actually the pain point that we decided to go into MandatesVR to solve.
So are you saying that if I want to view, let's say I want to rent a place now, Mondays VR can make me view the place from the comfort of my home? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, that's
Oh wow.
what we.
That's very exciting because a good number of us are always faced with the challenges of moving to a new place, especially in Lagos. Now, it's a very difficult thing to do. Let's talk about your team. How did you assemble the people around you? I think you talked about your co-founder earlier that you had worked on a
Yeah.
project with him. But like your first few hires, how did you come about it?
Okay, so like I mentioned, Daniel, my
Yeah,
our CEO, we were colleagues at my previous place of work, the real estate company where we worked together. We were there for 2 years, and of course, we aligned on multiple other things. We're kind of very different in personalities, but we kind of aligned on maybe values and so many other things. So naturally, we collaborated on stuff, and it became natural for us to work together when we're going to start the business. Then, but our CTO, I have always known. I met him in 2013 during my industrial attachment at
yeah,
a power generation plant. Right, he was a very booky person. If you're an electrical engineering student, you would know Teraja textbook. We call it the Bible of electrical electronics. So it's this big, right? And he took his time within 6 months to read the whole thing. And I mean, so he just we had some kind of mutual respect for each other because while he was doing that, I I I read at least 50 business books at the time, and he would tell me you are wasting your time. Like you have an opportunity to learn from this institution, like the organization we were in, and you are
yeah,
wasting your time reading these books. And in my head, I would think to myself too that this guy is wasting his time. He won't be able to do anything with this textbook that you're reading. But I mean, when you come out of uni and then you get into real life, you realize that neither of us was wasting our time, right?
yeah,
Any form of knowledge that you acquire is useful in some way, whether you know it or not. So we kept in touch. We worked together. At the point when we even decided to start our first startup, which is Soft Pager, it's a CRM platform. He was at PwC then, so we met up, had a conversation. At the point, he was even out of on his way out of the country at that time. But even if he left, we stayed in touch and finished the project together. We're still working together. Founded the first startup together and the second startup. The only other person that just joined us recently on Mandates VR is Chimishe. And we met at an event where we went to go and pitch
oh,
mandates, right? The very first or early version of mandates. So he met us there at Tech Point actually, Tech Point Africa Pitch Friday. We pitched there,
okay,
right there. And at the point we're looking for another co-founder to do something specific, right? I called him. I didn't even know he was an engineer. I called him to ask if he knew someone in his because I mean, what VR is not common, right? Especially in our climate. So
yeah.
we needed people with someone with specific skills. And he said, "Oh, I can do it." I was like, "Are you an engineer?" He said, "Yeah." And well, I prayed about it, and it was okay. So I spoke to the other co-founders, and he said, "Fine." So we took a shot, and he has been a very good addition to the team. Just blended in quite all right since last year.
Now that's very fantastic. I really think yourself and your co-founder work well together because of the different skill sets. is technical, you're business oriented. And
Yeah.
you talked about praying about bringing him on board. I mean, I always tell people sometimes when you're hiring people, it's okay to pray about it because
Ah,
the vetting
we've hired
process is
people
not
that have shown
reliable. You really have to pray about it on a
yeah.
very serious note. Talking about the life of being a founder, what is one underrated quality every co-founder should have based on your journey?
Now, I'm not sure how to name that quality, but it has to do with spirituality, right? Because you think you're just building technology, but there's a business side to it, and that business side sometimes is not as straightforward as people make it to be, right? You speak to, for example, you're pitching an investor. One investor tells you, I think your market, I think your product is too broad. You need to narrow it down into a niche. Pick a small market and then grow from there, expand it. And then you think, oh, that person did not give you money because of that. And you speak to another investor after you have refined your pitch to suit that investor. That one tells you, your market is too small. You have to find a product that covers a wide market, like your TAM or your SAM or whatever has to be big. And then you speak to one other person. I mean, they just tell you conflicting things, right?
Yeah.
But you need some level of discernment to be able to decipher what to say per time. And the truth is, there's no amount of preparation or reading or knowing your products that can help you decipher how to say or what to say. I mean, there's storytelling, right? And everybody learns storytelling. And I'm just speaking hypothetically because I'm speaking hypothetically about investors, but generally, for example, in picking a co-founder or choosing an employee to work with, there are so many things that you cannot decipher. I know people who have written um, giving equity to people who are not doing anything on their startup, right? And you just wonder,
Yeah.
how do you beg the person to leave since the person is not doing anything, and the person just decides that no, you have to pay me to leave. And I'm wondering, you haven't done anything. So I think we underestimate the necessity of being spiritual. And I've gotten close to a lot of, maybe um a, over a few years of being in tech, I have now met a lot of um should I say OGs, the supposedly established founders,
The
investors,
premium
and
guys.
operators. Yeah, the
Yeah.
premium guys. And you notice that they are almost always all spiritual,
All of
right?
them.
So yeah, so you're not being religious. It's
Yeah.
just something that you need to do. You
Reality.
cannot be, yeah, it's just reality. And more importantly, sometimes, I mean, as you found out, you battle self-doubt, right? You are seeking validation for your product from customers, from users, or from even employees, investors. And sometimes all of those things can be telling you no. They can be telling you are working on the on the wrong product. You start to doubt yourself. The only anchor you have at that time is God. Should I be doing this? Right. So it's only the voice of God or the word of God you have at certain times to just tell you whether or not you should pause or even continue.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. A lot of times, even we personally, we feel like I'm a smart person. I've
Yeah.
done I've done great things before, but now why am I having doubt? At some point, you just have to come and think about, nah, let me just face God. Let me talk to God. Whatever God
Yeah.
says, we move on from there. Talking
Yeah.
about validation, what was the your first big validation moment? Maybe your first years to partnership, maybe customer acquisition, something around that.
Okay, so what I have realized is sometimes even getting early validation might not be proof that you have a product yet, right? If you have one, two customers, but it can be encouraging. So for our first startup, we got, I mean, we started trying to sell the product long before it was completely built. It took us 5 months, but we went live January. We went live maybe around December. By February, we had our first check, right? So it was maybe a space of 1 month, and then that was really a boost of confidence that, oh yeah, yeah, we can do this. And this wasn't just, it was like a couple $1,000s because it was B2B, right? So and that was, this is good. And maybe for mandates, what we did was, so what I would, I'm trying to decipher which one to actually even mention, because we had a couple validations, early validations that gave us some booster. We're still thinking on the idea on a go-to market and how to really acquire customers. And we had this mentor of mine reach out to me from the US to say, "Oh, Jeff, I'm thinking about so and so idea. Um, I would like to do this, but I really don't have the time. What do you think? I know you are into this space." And I was like, this is interesting because we're thinking about this idea. And he said, okay, let me be part of it. And we eventually asked him for some money, and then he said, okay, yeah. So to me, that was just like, okay, if somebody is willing to give you money for this, then um,
That means work.
that means, I mean, there's some opportunity here to take advantage of. Beyond that, early in early October, I mean, we had some kind of disappointment that led to, um, you know how the Bible is that God is able to make all things work together for your good, right? We had the disappointment
Yeah.
that was turned out for our good, and we've just been on a roll since then. So that's in the EdTech space, right? Using
Yeah.
AR for education, and that has just been a very huge boost of confidence for us.
That's actually great. Now talking about the product you are launching in EdTech space, Vrill, or is it Vrill? What's the correct pronunciation?
Vrill,
Vrill. Okay,
Vrill.
good. Yeah, talking about Vrill, I find it very interesting. But for the broader audience, what is Vrill? What was it about? How did this idea emerge? And how can everybody benefit from it?
It seems like our ideas should usually come from, we usually have our ideas and give them time to marinate. So we had the idea to use VR in education, right? Now, all of us, I and my co-founders, all had a technical background. I did electrical electronics engineering. My CTO did, my CPO was in mechanical engineering. The other one was in
Wow.
chemical, right? So we have our fair share of unrealistic learning patterns in Nigerian schools, where you are supposed to be reading mechanical engineering or studying mechanical engineering, but you rarely have access to engines, in quotes, right? What you see is pictures in textbooks. And when you have
Yeah.
lab sessions, you go to the workshop, you haven't told, don't touch this, don't touch that, so you don't spoil it. And you probably have only 1 hour in 2 weeks to look at that, right? How are you supposed to relate to the practicality of what you are studying? So what we figured is that we could use AR or VR to create models of those things that you would naturally find in your textbooks, allow
Yeah.
people to do them and explore them, right? And have AI, quiz AI about it. So, for example, I'm looking at a V8 engine, but I can see one side that shows the pistons, right? or shows where the exhaust comes from, or the belt, but I don't know what's behind.
Yeah.
With you can turn it around, look at the product, kind of see the components, and then touch it, see what it's called, and then ask the AI about how it works. Right? So what we've
Yeah.
literally just done is put your textbook in AR for you to then quiz it using AI.
Yeah, that,
So you would have the kind of questions you would have in class asking your lecturer, but you can do that from convenient or the comfort of your hostel or anywhere. I mean, if we find it even useful for professionals, because we are doing the same thing for medicine, the human anatomy, the skeletal structure, and all of that.
I really think it's a game changer because schooling in Nigeria, we all experienced what you experienced going to the lab, and you can't essentially, should I say, relate with what you're seeing in the lab. And now you've come up with something that can even show 3D images, let you have a feel of what you're learning without actually touching it. But then it's still almost the same thing. You also mentioned earlier that you are integrating with platforms that collectively have almost 800,000 students. What kind of traction, what does this kind of traction mean for you and your team?
Well, apart from the fact that it means money, it just means that we're onto something really significant, because initially we're thinking, okay, maybe if we get 5,000 people using this, and there's not really there's really not enough data in for the African climate, right? So we didn't anticipate that we'll be able to have all of this really early in reality.
Yeah.
So what this means for us is we can quickly have, and we have a freemium version, right? So if we have up to 750 to 800,000 users using our products, we can replicate that same model for multiple other platforms, collaborating with institutions and EdTech platforms that have students who can benefit from our product, right? And once we have all of that, we can anticipate that maybe we get 1,000 to 10,000 or maybe even 100,000 users paying for the product, right? Because we do have a paid tier. Once we have that, I mean, we're good to go.
Yeah, that's very fantastic. Now talking about success for Mandates VR and Vrill. Looking ahead to like 3 to 5 years, what does success look for? Or what does success look like for Mandates VR and for Vrill?
Yep. Vrill is part of MandatesVR. So, I mean,
Yeah,
100,000 users paying us an average of $20 to $30. That would be $2 million.
that's
That
a
would
lot.
be that would be good.
Yeah,
That's the simple goal.
I like that you are so business oriented. I like that so much. That's so nice. This is the final question now. Uh, let's say you were to advise a younger version of yourself coming up as a founder. What advice do you give to the person?
The the two most important things would be God and people. Right? It sounds very cliche, and but you wouldn't know the importance yet until you start. And this is not to say that I'm not talking about being a pastor, right? It has nothing to do with that. But you realize that you would get the most results from just meeting the right people, right? Just speaking to the
Yeah.
right person. Just one person telling you, oh, this is good, hone in on this, or narrow down on this, right? And you might just decide to follow through and realize that, okay, I'm getting results from this. So people don't become successful in their startups because they are brilliant, right? You do have to be, you have to have some level of brilliance as a human being, right? And some level of persistence and tenacity. And you can see all of those things, right? But You can be persistent and not necessarily be brilliant or as brilliant and still achieve a lot because you just met the right set of people.
Yeah.
And who better to lead you to the right set of people than God, right? So I mean that's the summary for me. I find that I have achieved more from just being in the right place at the right time, meeting the right person, right? So one person just takes interest in you, or you just listen to one person. I mean, I think I think I've been able to summarize what I'm trying to say: God and then people, because the right people is actually more important than the product you're trying to build.
Yeah. I think you said it all because God leads you. Even God leads you to the right people. So that's another thing I'm thinking in my head. To be honest, this has been probably my best conversation ever. Thank you for
Eh,
taking for you. Thank you for talking about your journey, the Mandates VR story, the vision behind Vrill. I think a lot of people watching this will walk away with a clearer picture of what you're building, of how innovation can actually transform learning, transform how we are able to rent properties. I really appreciate you making the time, and I'm excited to see how far you and the team will take this. To everyone watching, thank you for staying with us. If you enjoyed this conversation, make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel and share with someone that you think will really benefit from what they are building at Mondays VR. See you in the next episode. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.